WrestlePalooza was this past weekend. Triple H promises the biggest surprises you're ever going to see. It's a WrestleMania style show, as we all watched, with some saying it was okay, some saying it was better than okay. But at the end of the day, I think we all can admit it wasn't WrestleMania. It wasn't SummerSlam. It wasn't a big five pay-per-view. The stage, the set, the big, hey, here's how we looked like Monday Night Raw. Looks how they like to look. I mean, sure, they did some pyro with the opening ESPN bit a little bit. But for the most part,
by the way. I did like the intro. The intro was good.
The intro was interesting. I've never seen it where with the pyro matching like the parts of the video. That was interesting.
It was good.
Their big ESPN 4A, right? As I just said, Triple H promising surprises. The only surprise was, I guess, a narcissistic surprise in the sense of his own self promoting his wife to be up next year in the Hall of Fame.
Maybe that probably was a surprise. Honestly, I think that's what they were trying to sell. And hey, by the way, not to go too far on that, congratulations to Stephanie. I know people are gonna say it's like the nepotism kind of thing and blah 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 blah. She deserves it. I'm glad she's getting in. I'm happy for her. She's been a part of, our lives for majority of our lives. And you know what? Shout out to her for what she's done for the business. She's a boss lady. Good for her. I will say
it's weird,
that's
though.
That's not the surprise I wanted.
Yeah. It's weird, though, that, I would say, she shouldn't be and isn't a headliner. Maybe she will be. We'll see how thin the class is. But it's just, I guess, kind of strange because, she isn't really necessarily the headliner. And they're announcing it like further in advance than they've ever announced a Hall of Famer ever before. So
I think she'd be a good filler. I don't think she'll be the headliner.
It is weird though, because we normally don't get names until January, and last year I think we didn't get any names until February. And
they waited a long time last year.
Yes, and now we're getting one in September. Like I said, it's not Hogan or Andre or The Rock or anything like that. I think if you're going to do that, I think actually that would have been something maybe they should have done. Maybe WrestlePalooza should have had John Cena announced or something like to get, because again, WrestleMania tickets went on sale this past week, and with WrestlePalooza essentially being their foray into ESPN, you need to make a big splash. So I'll ask you before we get into wins or losses or any of that kind of stuff. Did WWE make the splash that you thought they would and that they should have, into their foray into ESPN?
No, they didn't. They really didn't. To me, they should have knocked it out of the park. And, for my grading system, it should have been no less than an A. I'd say A plus. Like they had to knock it out of the park. It needed to be a grand slam. To me, it was like a double. If we're talking baseball, I know baseball playoffs are coming up. I would consider a double. Off air, we were talking about it. Like some say it was like a C.
ESPN said it was a C, and that's where like a lot of people are really, they're going off of that. A lot of people have been talking, right? So the writer for ESPN,
I disagree with it though. I disagree with that because I think I would put it more as a B, and I'm saying it because the matches themselves were, I thought the matches were pretty good. I mean, honestly, the match of the night, I think we all can agree. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on this one. Stephanie Vaquer and Io Sky, I think they tore the house down. That was a hell of a match. I thought some of the other matches were good. Brock Lesnar, John Cena was what it was. But overall, the whole C thing, and we were talking off air about it, and I'll just say it now. To me, it's almost like you're grading this on what? Like you do you not know what we bring to the table as the WWE?
Well, I will give it to this writer because again, I think this isn't ESPN grading this as like a new writer that's been assigned to this. It's Andreas Hale who reviews wrestling. Like WWE has always kind of been a part of ESPN, just obviously not the programming on the platform. He stated that the excellent Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky match saved the show from being truly average. It was a phenomenal display inside the squared circle between those two. Everything else was either underwhelming, specifically the Rhodes and McIntyre match, or a setup for a future match with Lesnar dominating Cena.
What was wrong with that match? I wasn't the dirt sheet 5-star match, but I wasn't expecting that from Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre.
I guess I think a lot of people were expecting not a clean finish. They were expecting something that might set up for intrigue. Right, Cody Rhodes just won the match, similar to what you thought John Cena was going to do. You thought that was going to be the main event. You thought that everyone was going to go home happy with a John Cena win. I actually kind of like that, that whole surprise everyone, Brock Lesnar, and I actually will give that a better grade than a C. And the reason is, and John Cena also says that for the most part, this is not going to be a lead up to another match. I think that is it between him and Lesnar. But why I think that was a good result was because one, John Cena's taken off, right? If you're going to get into the Star Wars universe or the Lord of the Rings universe and you're going to be like, hey, there's like 9 movies, there's going to be a whole bunch of books, you want to stay tuned, right? You want to give people other characters than the one that they know about. Everyone knows John Cena, and it's a bad time to be a John Cena fan because he's going away. So if you're somebody out there who's just watching WWE, you're going to need to know about more people than John Cena. Like if I'm getting into the MLB and I know nothing about baseball, right? I just know about Aaron Judge, right? Baseball's boring. It's a stupid sport. I heard of Aaron Judge. I heard he's the best. Well, if I turn on a game and I see that he's the best and there really isn't anyone else, then my suspicions, right? My predetermined stereotypes are confirmed, right? That, okay, gotcha. There is really nobody else. I know who I need to know. But if you introduce me to other people and go, oh, wait, oh, Aaron Judge is only just one of the characters here.
That's why they should have finished the night with that. They should have,
because then
you make the people wait for it.
I think the Brock Lesnar situation was good for this because one, the ESPN audience is going to be that skeptical audience that wrestling's fake, that why was Rey Mysterio beating Big Show? That's completely unbelievable.
Want to know where they should have started?
That's stupid. This was a believable ending. I liked Brock Lesnar beating John Cena because you're showing people who would know that Brock Lesnar is a real UFC fighter that, yeah, that actually is scripted, but it was done in a believable way. And as me, a sports fan, that's a believable ending.
I think, I know it's hindsight because, you know, everybody really, the reviews were really good for Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer. Honestly, that's what I would have started the night with because, you know, you're featuring 2 of the best women. And let's be honest, you and I, we watch it all the time. We literally been doing this podcast for almost a decade. We know what those 2 ladies bring to the table. So I would assume WWE and all the people behind the scenes that are putting this card together know the same thing that we do. Make that be the starting point of WrestlePalooza. Tear the house down and show, hey, you know, yeah, everybody knows John Cena. Everybody knows Brock Lesnar. You know, we know Seth Rollins. He was talking to Stephen A. Smith, this, that, and the other thing. But let's show you our female wrestlers who are the best athletes on the planet. And we got Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer tear the house down, which we all expected. They should have started the night, in my opinion.
I mean, or you could add Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre if you're going to have the I guess the thing is that people thought, you know, maybe this was time for a new champion again, because the same idea as the Brock Lesnar with the whole Drew McIntyre. And that's why I kind of picked him to win, was because I thought, well, how are we going to get people to tune in tomorrow, right? Because there's more shows, there's more PLEs, there's Raw, there's SmackDown. So if this is eventually the first show that people are watching, you have to give it. And it worked perfectly for me. I can tell you the first WWE show I ever watched was that pilot episode of SmackDown. You know, in 1999, I never watched WWE really before, and it did stuff on that pilot episode, which then made me go, well, where's that going? And it was a SmackDown episode, so obviously there was no pay-per-view matches, right? It was like all just chit-chat, but it was a lot of promos and things that made me be like, well, when are they going to fight? And that's when friends at school would be like, oh, they're going to fight at the next pay-per-view, you know, Over the Edge, Judgment Day, whatever. So I was like, well, I want to know now because they were talking a lot of smack and I need to see the payoff. So I think these shows, you know, obviously this is PLE, it's different than the Raw on Netflix debut, but I think they could use a lot of promos because you want to get people hyped for the next shows. Now, this is a PLE, and I understand that, you know, you don't do a lot of the promos on a PLE, but you got to do something that essentially maybe like the Randy Orton come out, accidentally cost Cody Rhodes the match. Obviously, like a lot of people were maybe hoping, Drew McIntyre wins the belt. Something of that nature where you get people intrigued to be like, well, I got to tune in tomorrow. Because that's what PLEs used to always do on a Sunday night. You got to tune in to Monday Night Raw after they're over with.
What happens next?
Yeah, so, you know, it just didn't leave people who maybe don't watch this with the idea that they need to tune in and watch the next thing. Was there, you know, do you think ESPN is having any buyer's remorse, or do you think from their perspective, not obviously the WWE, you know, reviewer, but from their perspective, do you think, you know, it delivered in the sense of like audience and money wise back into their
I'm sure it hit those numbers fine because WWE has the universe. The universe obviously goes and spends their hard-earned money, do all that. Yeah, I think they'll be fine there. But I wouldn't be surprised, and obviously you and I are not in those rooms because, you know, we're not Triple H, we're not in that circle, so to speak. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were conversations had after WrestlePalooza between ESPN and the WWE family, and, you know, say, hey, you know, you promised me a few things, and I don't think we got what we wanted. I think we need to step our game up going forward if
Yeah,
this
because
is
remember
all
they
going to
pushed
work
this
out.
pay-per-view up because they were originally going to start with the Royal Rumble, and they moved this up the line to start early. And next pay-per-view PLE is Crown Jewel, which is on at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I know WWE is going to try to deliver, but that's not necessarily like the ideal time for the next follow-up show, right? If you're just, hey, when's the next show? I'm getting into this Saturday morning at 8 a.m., or if you're on the West Coast, 5 a.m., right? So it's a tough follow-up act for WWE. I think the follow-up act is starting to look like it could be better with AJ and Cena and stuff as announced originally here. But I feel like maybe WWE should have waited to start this at the Royal Rumble. That's a perfect PLE to get people in tune because it's on the road to WrestleMania. Obviously, the winner of the Royal Rumble gets that shot at WrestleMania. That's the whole gimmick there. So, I maybe think they should have waited a little bit. And also, too, with Crown Jewel, what's the deal with it on at 8 o'clock in the morning when it was on at 5 o'clock in the morning East Coast last time around? Like, what the heck? Like, we could have
Hey,
got it at 8 o'clock in the morning?
hey, perfect for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm
No,
not.
it's good. But Crown Jewel, or what was it? Elimination Chamber last year was on at 5 a.m. and they were in Perth last year. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering
Here,
why.
just get you some pancakes, or whatever your favorite breakfast sandwich is, and watch them wrestling and have some breakfast.
Was Elimination Chamber on at 5
I think it
p.m.?
was. I think it was 5. I didn't get up early for that.
Well,
I
it was
think
on at 5 a.m. I know it was on at 5 a.m. for me. That's what I'm saying. So was it on
it
at
was.
5 p.m.? Because they said that Crown Jewel is on at 8 p.m. local, 8 a.m. Eastern in America. So it just made me be like, wait, hold on. If it's a 12-hour difference and that's 8 and 8, why did it have to be on at 5? Like, why did you put it on at 5 in the
That
afternoon?
part doesn't. That part of it
Yeah.
doesn't add up.
So
But
this time is actually a better time. Yes, 8 a.m. is a better time
yeah, because you know
than
what?
5 a.m.
I mean, for me personally, like I'll be chilling, getting some breakfast, and watching some wrestling. I mean, and then I have the rest of my day to do whatever I want. It's not a
And
bad.
that was weird for me because I mean, obviously, WrestlePalooza and things like that, where I was out, near the West Coast, was on earlier today. What was really weird is I was actually watching a little bit of AEW All Out, the pre-show that was on the regular cable channels. And you want to talk about weird branding? We talk about watching like WWE on Netflix and things like that, and that's essentially how I watch WrestlePalooza on Netflix. I watch it the legal way, but I'll tell you either way, I'm going to continue to watch it on Netflix. Where did you watch it there, Brandon?
I actually watched it on ESPN because I do have the app. Because here's the
Oh.
thing, I was more intrigued with how the functionality of the app would be because I wanted to see the first time, see if there's any kinks. Because I already knew where you were going. I already knew that because we've already talked about it off air and on air, honestly, about it. And I was like, you know what? He's gonna watch it that way.
I would have had to VPN it to watch it on ESPN. That's where I was. I would have had to do the VPN to do the
Yeah,
reverse.
you have to go the other way. But no, I,
Yes.
I figured I figured you were gonna be, obviously getting married and all that in Canada. So
Mhm.
I figured, okay, you're watching it on Netflix. I'm gonna be here stateside. I want to see how this whole ESPN thing worked. And honestly, it was the way they laid it out was actually really good. I got to give ESPN credit because they had it with a slate of college football games. They had it as the first thing that you could watch besides like they had
Mhm.
WrestlePalooza on ESPN, but then the rest of the college football games. I was curious to see the layout. They really were pushing WrestlePalooza against college football. So
From what
kudos
I've
to
heard, though,
ESPN.
is since then they've kind of buried it a little bit on the ESPN websites and things like
I'm
that.
not surprised.
As for where WWE lies, like I'll actually, what, a good time. It's sitting at the computer after just reading that review. I will go on ESPN right now and I will scroll down and I can tell you I'm halfway through the page and obviously there's all the stuff on the sides of the page and things like that. And I'm almost to the bottom and I don't see. Yeah, I don't see any WWE stuff.
No, because what you have to
WNBA,
do, which
soccer.
you gotta search it. You
Yeah,
just gotta
all the way
type in
to, when it's
WrestlePalooza.
funny, all the way at the bottom of the ESPN page, they have the ESPN sites, apps, fantasy, quick links, and watch now. And under quick links, you got like WNBA playoffs, you got women's basketball, you got the X Games, you got ESPN FC, which is soccer. You even have the NCAA Tournament Challenge, which clearly isn't going on at this time right now. But there's quick links to that. WWE is in the same category as the UFL, the NBA G League, and a bunch of other Little League World Series things. Again, not going on at the moment. Things like that. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's essentially a little bit buried in their stuff. But what I was saying is while I was in Canada, we talk about, different how things are, presented differently. I think like in India, WWE's been on like Disney Plus in years past, things like that. But I was watching the AEW All In or All Out pre-show, which was on at like, 11 a.m. where I was. And I was watching it on cable television. The channel I was watching it on cable, on the regular cable television, was the USA Network, because in Canada, AEW Collision, which essentially this counted as AEW Collision that week, is on the USA Network, which the USA Network looks and feels just like the American. Obviously, they have some different programming and things, but it's the same branding, right? It's not just like the name. It's got that little like, it's the USA Network, the same logo that you get when you watch it in America.
Looks the same, yeah.
So it's just strange, watching the USA Network logo in the corner with AEW on the TV, because we all know obviously AEW, WWE, that's not the same thing. USA has a deal with WWE. So it's just strange that it's the USA Network, home of SmackDown, home of Raw for many years, right? Home of the WWE for my entire life is where you can find AEW Collision. And also actually too, it was also simulcast on TSN, which is their ESPN. Now, again, TSN there, while it has Sports Center and it had College Game Day, so it simulcast a lot of things with ESPN because essentially they are partnership, and the TSN logo is symbolic of the ESPN logo. Because of the deals, there is no mention of WWE on TSN. Even though they have Sports Center and College Game Day, like I just mentioned. So they share a lot of the ESPN shows, and they were playing some college football on TSN.
They share a lot of properties, but
they share a lot of properties, but not this one, because WWE obviously is on Netflix in Canada. So it is strange to see like this kind of turnover where it's USA on the AEW side, and then TSN has AEW stuff and no mention of WWE at all, even though
I know you're Mr. Travel guy. I was talking to one of my cousins who's traveled a lot, and he was telling me that you can watch any pay-per-view for free. Like it's just on regular TV down in parts of like Latin America. I don't know.
It may be. I know that for years it's not the same now, but that apparently Sky Sports for years, I think it was before the invention of Sky Sports Box Office, where they had those like WWE Insurrections and Rebellions. But like I think in like the early 90s, like SummerSlam and things like that were just on Sky Sports, like SummerSlam 92 and things like that, which was a part of like your cable package back then. So, I mean, yeah, I imagine, like I said, from my understanding is WWE PLEs in India were, as I last looked, were like on Disney Plus in India. So, it's crazy.
It's interesting unless you're there,
There's so many deals, and it's crazy because, we live in the United States where obviously the deals that are made in the United States get all the press, right? So I'm watching WrestlePalooza on Netflix, right? They pay a lot of money to be there, and yet you wouldn't know it because it's literally the program is around ESPN, right? I'm on Netflix and I'm watching an ESPN intro video, and they have like the ESPN logo on everything, and they're really pushing they're on ESPN despite the fact that every other country except one is not watching it on ESPN. This WrestlePalooza is not the big foray into ESPN if you live in the UK. You know what I mean? So it would be strange. It would be strange if Monday Night Raw was on Tuesday night all of a sudden because of their new acceptance on ITV in the UK. And Monday Night Raw on ITV was literally like all they talked about on Monday Night Raw. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's on Netflix. It's like where I'm watching it like I always watch it. You know what I mean? Why did you move it to Tuesday? Oh, because in England it's better on Tuesday? Well, like it looks like Raw to me, but like I said, I'm watching this on Netflix and all they're talking about is ESPN. And it's just strange because it's like where I'm not watching it on ESPN, and anyone in the country that I'm currently in is not watching this on ESPN. And also too, I will say, and I know it's an app, but I wasn't watching it live. And I was around town where, college football, CFL football, hockey, preseason hockey, those things were all on television, tons of bars and restaurants as I was walking through the town, and no WWE in any of them. And I know it's like an app and I get it, but like you would think maybe because it's on ESPN, maybe they would try to promote a little bit more of a public viewing because of that. But it still was like anything else, just like it was on Netflix or pay-per-view. I walked into a bar, there's 75 TVs, they've got sports in every one of them. WrestlePalooza wasn't on any of them. So, I really do wonder, because I know it's on ESPN, but it's still not really on ESPN, I guess, at the end of the day, because it's just the ESPN app. Yeah. It's still a pay-per-view kind of service. It's not like people are going to find it that, wouldn't find, I guess, where ESPN comes in and all this was the pre-shows and things like that, where people are going to get the pre-shows and the countdown shows and the post shows to kind of get them. But the actual pay-per-view itself is still going to be people like me and you who are specifically finding this product. It's not just going to just pop up on their cable channels. I'm wondering if maybe WrestleMania will. And I think, to really kick this one off, maybe that's what this should have done. It should have been on ESPN or something like that, or ESPN2 or something. It wasn't. And I wonder going forward, about, like I said, the reception, because WrestlePalooza, WWE, the rumors were that this is going to be like the new WrestleMania, the WrestleMania, the second one of the year, because, if they're going to Saudi, maybe this will be next year's WrestleMania, that whole nonsense.
Not so.
Yeah, I don't think so. WrestlePalooza felt like Unforgiven, and we'll see if WWE retires it after just this one year, because like I said, it's not a big five or a big four or anything like that. I can tell you from their first foray, it wasn't even Money in the Bank.